It's with great pleasure that I welcome back Dr. Sean Patel, who's the CEO and founder of Prep Expert, the title sponsor of the College Admissions Process podcast. Sean, you have a special message for the listeners?
Hey, John, I just wanted to mention for all the parents and students who are listening to this great podcast, we have a really special offer only for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast for Prep Expert. So if your student is going to be taking an online SAT, ACT, PSAT course anytime soon, or is looking for one-on-one tutoring with top 1% tutors, head over to prepexpert.com. We offer live online courses for every college admissions exam. On top of that, we have the best score guarantees, best curriculum, and best instructors in the test prep industry. And just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast, you can get 20% off any online SAT or PSAT or ACT course, as well as one-on-one tutoring. So you can get 20% off. Just make sure you use the promo code College Talk. That's one word, College Talk, and you'll get 20% off just for listeners of the College Admissions Process podcast. And I hope you guys can use that to your advantage, save a bunch of money at prepexpert.com.
Thank you so much, Sean. And to everyone out there, once again, that promo code is College Talk. That's one word, College Talk. Thank you all, and best wishes. Welcome to The Cap, where we are here to speak with college reps and other professionals in the field of college admissions to help answer all your questions and guide you through every step of the process. So if you're serious about college admissions, you've come to the right place. Are you ready? Let's talk about it. And now, here's your host, Dr. John Durante. Welcome to The Cap, the College Admissions Process podcast. I am your host, John Durante, and it gives me great pleasure to welcome today Dr. Janessa Dunn, who's the Director of Admissions at Skidmore College. Dr. Dunn, it's such an honor to have you here today. How are you?
Oh, I am doing marvelous today. Thank you so much, Dr. Durante. I am super excited to have a conversation with you.
Well, the excitement and the honor is all ours. So, Dr. Dunn, can you give us an overview of Skidmore College in terms of your academic offerings, life on campus, and frankly, anything else you want to share?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Again, my name is Janessa Dunn, Director of Admissions at Skidmore College in beautiful Saratoga Springs, New York. If you are unfamiliar of our location, we're located about 35 minutes north of New York State's capital, Albany, New York. We are a beautiful quintessential college town and have been noted as one of the top college towns in the country for several years. And what makes us special as a community, particularly at Skidmore, is we are a residential college, and more specifically, a residential liberal arts college. We have a wonderful student population of around 2,700 total students, all undergraduate, meaning that all of our resources, our attention, our support are dedicated to the undergraduate experience for our students. And our students are doing a wide array or embracing a wide array of academic interest. Over 40 majors and minors are housed within our institution, and we have many of our students who take advantage of those by double majoring or mining across disciplines, which is the majority of our students at Skidmore. You will find that we have 19 Division III varsity teams. And so our students who are student athletes in that perspective are very active. And we also have students who are not student athletes who are supporting their classmates, their hallmates, their roommates in that space. Our dining hall, which food is very important, has been ranked one of the top dining halls in the country. And I will share transparently, I eat as a staff member at the institution in the dining hall 3 to 4 times a week. So I can vouch that the food is good. There's a healthier arrangement of opportunities, but we're also a completely nut-free dining hall with many opportunities for students and visiting families to have altered and catered options, including a test kitchen for our students in our community. But that's just a little bit of a glimpse of our community, and I look forward to sharing more.
Well, we appreciate the glimpse. You talk about the quintessential college town. You're a residential liberal arts college with approximately 2,700 undergraduate students, 19 Division III varsity teams, and you have interdisciplinary opportunities galore. So that was a great overview, Dr. Dunn. We appreciate it. So, what trends are you seeing in application volume, selectivity, and the overall competitiveness of Skidmore's applicant pool?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I will share with you specifically at Skidmore, over the last few years, we have been able to enjoy some of the highest volumes of applications for us in our school's history, just around 12,000 applications. We are hoping to enroll every year around 700 first year students and a small cohort of transfer students to our campus every single year. I can share with you, as it relates to those trends, we are seeing great interest, of course, here in our backyard, here in this great state of New York, the Northeast, Mid Atlantic region, where you'll see a good portion of our students. But we are also a national liberal arts college, and we're seeing great interest from the West Coast of the United States, the Southeast region of the United States, given the demographic shifts of the country. The Midwest is also very much well represented, but more so international perspectives and experiences where students are, whether they are citizens of another country or they may be what some may describe as third culture kids, students who are U.S. citizens who grew up abroad in multiple environments and making their way back to the U.S. for post-secondary education. And so we do have about 60 countries represented amongst our international student population as well.
Well, I really appreciate that, particularly that you talked about the fact that you get approximately 12,000 applications and you're looking for a class of approximately 700. That's your institutional priority in terms of how many students you want to bring in that are new. Now, families often hear the phrase institutional priorities, but it can feel abstract. At Skidmore, what priorities most influence how you build a class, academically, geographically, artistically, or otherwise? And are there priorities applicants rarely even think about?
Oh, now I love this question, Dr. Durante. I'm so glad that you mentioned it in this way, especially currently we are on the heels of a robust application review season and having the opportunity to review applications holistically, meaning that we're looking at both quantitative and qualitative aspects of a student's performance, their interest, as well as building a wonderful, robust, and engaging community to represent the breadth and depth of our multiple subjects. I'll start off from an academic perspective. Our top majors at Skidmore are represent a wide range of different areas. The visual arts, which has been a long-standing support for us, including studio art, where students can emphasize in ceramics or fabric and weaving, or even for students who are thinking about running their own museum. And we have alums who have done so, which is great. We also have students who are interested in health and human sciences, thinking about preparing for med school, for thinking about PT school, research, or even the pure natural sciences in that regard as well. And everything in between, the humanities, management and business, international affairs. And the reason why I mentioned the breadth and depth of those areas is during our review process, we do not admit by major, and that is a priority for us. We are looking for students who are wanting to delve into areas that may not be as concrete for them. Our motto at Skidmore is creative thought matters, and that is exhibited and exuded even when students make their first academic choices, including their Scribner seminar, where they're delving into the first year experience, learning how to write small group mentorship style programs, while also delving into some really cool topics that our faculty members are excited to teach that are interdisciplinary in nature in themselves and exposing our students to areas of interest that they may have ever thought of. So that I would say that is a big piece of our experience is that we're looking for students who are thinking about their full holistic academic experience and meshing those together with their own development as a human being.
Well, I appreciate how you talked about the fact that you're not admitting by major because you want the students to come in and really dive deep in terms of your interdisciplinary opportunities. And I also appreciate in the beginning, you talked about your holistic review where you're looking at quantitative but also qualitative aspects of the overall application. And of course, many people want to hear about that application review. So let's break it down a little bit. Dr. Dunn, when reviewing a transcript at a liberal arts college like Skidmore, What stands out most and what carries the greatest weight?
Oh my goodness. I love to put this in the perspective of a pie. I am originally from the southern region of the United States. So this is going to definitely share a little bit from where I'm from. I love sweet potato pies and I love peach pies. So those are the pies that I'm going to use. For some of you, that may be a Boston cream pie, that could be a chicken pot pie, whatever one you choose. Um, it is up to you. But I would say, as it relates to academic achievement for our students, there are about four variables that can be considered. And I would equate those to the crust of a pie. To be very transparent, as we talked a little about, in terms of our volume of applications, we are a selective institution as it relates to admit rate. And there are some pieces that at Skidmore that allow us to really understand our students beyond the numbers. But I would equate those four variables to the crust of a pie. Those are going to be the high school transcript. And so looking primarily at grades 9 through 11, or the equivalent, depending from where students are achieving their high school credits. We do request and require at certain points of time senior year grades, whether a student is first quarter, first semester, trimester, in that regard, just to see how students are performing throughout their senior year. Are they still engaged in those courses and that trajectory? So high school transcript is giving us the story. It's giving us the framework to understand our students. Within that transcript, we're going to be looking at the grade trend. So if it's a positive grade trend, if it's consistent across years, sometimes we may see bunny slopes or roller coasters as it relates to grade trends, but that just allows us to know a little bit about what longitudinally your performance is within the high school experience. We also, outside of that, consider context behind those grades. So for many students, it could be I moved high schools, or there was an extenuating circumstance outside of school that may have impacted their experience on the inside of school. We consider that as a part of our holistic review as well. You will also find that rigor is a part of that experience. And so, whether a student's rigorous course curriculum may include advanced placement, AP, International Baccalaureate, IB, the Cambridge curriculum for some students, dual enrollment for students, a combination of different areas. We also have students who may attend schools that have moved away from traditional advanced placement courses, such as moving on to the accelerated advanced, really thinking about what that rigor looks like. But for us, we're evaluating within the context of the student's high school. We are not comparing students from a school that may be down the road or across the state or even across the country or world. We're looking at specifically what is available to the student in their high school in that particular graduating class, because we know things that may change over time. And then the last variable as a test optional institution is if a student does complete and decide to submit a standardized test score, whether that is the ACT or the SAT. That is the fourth variable that we would consider as a part of that academic achievement, the crust of the pie, if you will. And in selective admissions, that crust may be pretty thick as the foundation for the student's candidacy.
Well, we really appreciate that overview. You talked about the four variables just beautifully. I also appreciate the fact that you talked about you're evaluating students based on the context of their high school. You're not evaluating them or comparing them compared to the student in the high school down the road. And so, a question that comes up a lot is, would you rather see, Dr. Dunn, that a student challenge themselves and take the AP course and perhaps get a B plus, or take the regular equivalent at his or her high school and get the A? What would you say to a student or a parent that asks that question? Because I hear that all the time.
I'm sure you do hear that all the time. And I will share with you, from the context of Skidmore, we love to see students who are challenging themselves within the context of that they feel comfortable. So achieving a B plus in an advanced placement course is something that we're seeing that you're taking on that challenge. A B plus in an advanced placement course, we know that takes quite a bit of effort in that regard. And that's evidence that you have taken that effort in that regard. So for us, we would rather a student take that advanced placement course.
Well, we appreciate that. And you also touched upon the fact that you are test optional. Can you share the percentage of students who are admitted that did not submit test scores? And how would you advise students whether to submit scores or not?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So within Skidmore's context, about 65% of our most recent entering class chose not to submit standardized test scores as a part of their review. A big piece of advice that I always encourage students, parents, guardians, counselors to really consider as they're going through this process as well is the percentage of students which test score was the most prevalent amongst those students who did submit, because that is going to be reflective of what the average or middle 50% SAT or ACT that may be displayed on a college's website. So for us, most of our submitters are SAT submitters. We do have students who are also ACT submitters. We have no preference between the two, which I think is very important to keep in mind. Sometimes there are relationships between a testing organization and the high school. And so we know in that regard, this is something that we're going to see. But I will share with you within the context of Skidmore, there's no preference, and the majority of our students choose not to submit testing.
Well, we appreciate that. And in a recent conversation that I asked, what advice would you give to students who are considering whether or not to submit? Most students and their families, they're looking at the college's mid 50%, which of course we know are skewed these days because really only the students that are submitting are those that are scoring well in this test optional environment. But someone made a comment. They said, in addition to looking at the college's mid 50, when you're trying to consider whether or not to submit your own score, to look at the context of your own high school. What's the mean score? What are the averages in terms of the SAT or if you choose the ACT to help you, not to necessarily be the definitive decision, but to help you decide whether or not to submit? What would you have to say about that?
Oh, now that is a very good question because for high schools who are able to share that average SAT or average ACT for the school population, whether that's an aggregate across years or that specific graduating class, I would share that that could be helpful, but I would not use it as a defining piece, just as you've mentioned. It is going to be very much representative of the schools, the specific schools that the students intend to apply, and also as well, depending on the programs. And so some institutions themselves are going to have more of an emphasis on test scores. Others may not have it as a leading variable. I can share from Skidmore's lens that test scores are not a leading variable as a part of our review process. We focus more on those four variables that we talked a little bit more about earlier, the three of the four variables in that regard. But I would say it can be helpful, but not the defining feature of whether a student should apply. A better or another variable to consider is that average or middle 50% at the school to which they're applying, and really thinking about it that way. This is an aside, but given that some students may be thinking about, I have, several classmates who may be high testers in this regard. And I heard that they got a 34 on the ACT or 1500 on the SAT, and I'm not quite there. Am I going to look bad, as a part of my review process if I haven't achieved those things? My biggest piece of advice is to not compare yourself to other students in your high school. Your fellow classmates may be applying to different programs, applying to different schools. And then also, especially if you're applying to schools with holistic admissions, I can share with years of admissions experiences that the test score is not going to be the defining reason why a student is admitted or not admitted as it relates to that experience.
Well, you made that very clear. And again, going back to what you said earlier, 65% did not submit their test scores to the awesome Skidmore College. Now, let's break down the overall application review just a little further. Dr. Dunn, what would you say separates a compelling essay from one that feels generic? And how do you recognize authentic intellectual curiosity or creativity in the writing of that essay?
Yes, I love the word creativity because that is our heartbeat at Skidmore, and we love to see it. And also recognizing that creativity for us as a campus and as a community is within the aggregate. It's a mosaic, so students are able to come as their full selves as they make their way to our community. And when you In some cases, you may think of a profile of a college student at a certain school. There may be one or two different types of students who may be attracted to those areas. Our president, Mark Kerner at Skidmore, always likes to say there are as many types of Skidmore students as there are students. And I feel so deeply about that. And that is reflected in the writing as well, too. And so when it comes down to the essay piece and the role of authenticity, I think the number one is, of course, answering the prompt, which I know that my my wonderful colleagues in admissions across the board at multiple institutions would agree with. But I think number two is the role of really defining and understanding that what you're sharing with us is a slice of your life. It's not your full life. We are not expecting you to put everything in 650 words. And if I can be a little bit more on the STEMmy side here as well, I would say that 25% of your essay should give us context, but the 75%, the rest of the 75% of your essay should give us why is it meaningful to you? Why is it important to you? And that allows us to be able to hear your voice more deeply versus a regurgitation of details and facts of that particular topic. I will say that most students at Skidmore are what most colleges and institutions would consider traditional students. So they're coming directly from high school to college or may have pursued a gap year or two prior to entering at Skidmore. And so inevitably, we're going to see common topics. We're going to see something about sports. We're going to see something about how you're spending your summer. We're going to see something about an experience that some 17, 18, 19-year-old students have experienced, right? Those are inevitable. But again, that 75% is what it means to you and why it's important. And this kind of goes back to the role that our students are navigating as well as the role of AI and how to really think about authenticity there. That 75% is one that I highly encourage students not to enter into the AI space because it is your own experience.
Without a doubt, do not enter the AI space to write the essay for you, students, because they're going to know. Admissions reps, they read 40 to 50 essays a day in the heart of the application review season, and they know when it is a 17-year-old's voice in an essay as opposed to AI generated, which is completely inappropriate to use in the college process. Now, you talked about how you can't put everything in a 650-word essay, but students who are really sharp, they know that they want to look at the overall application and they want to fill every single gap because let's face it, you're a stranger to the students that are applying. And so many students, when they look at their application, if they feel that there's something missing, they'll use the additional information section just to fill in those gaps. So, Dr. Dunn, when does it generally help to provide extra context and when does it detract? And perhaps can you share an example of how a student used the additional information space effectively?
Yes, and I will begin with how not to use it effectively. I have seen students who have added a completely new essay, an additional essay in the additional information section. I highly discourage it. I highly discourage it because that is also student not following directions for the use case of the additional information section. However, although rare when that happens, it's not necessarily going to be the defining factor, but it is also a piece that is not necessary as a part of the review process. Some successful ways and measures are I've seen students successfully include bullet points of context. And so let's just say in the activity section, there is an acronym that doesn't quite fit in the limited number of characters. And you really want to describe what this organization, what this program or engagement look like and allow students in bullet point form to expound upon what that looks like and what that means for that student. Not a full paragraph, a bullet point is helpful. We've also seen students who have provided additional context, whether that is, as I mentioned a little bit earlier, regarding things that may be occurring on the outside of school that may have impacted a student's performance on the inside of school. And so students will share special circumstances, whether they've had a loss in their family or there were some other personal experiences that they may have had. To the extent that they feel comfortable, they're welcome to share those with us. For some students, they may include a link to a portfolio. And so, depending on the institution, some institutions encourage it. At Skidmore, it is a separate process, so always go back to the directions of the institution. Students may put a link, to their personal website, their personal portfolios, so to display visual artwork, for example, if they're into the visual arts. But all of that to say, I think no additional essays is important, and it's important to be succinct. There is an additional portion of the application if you have had a secondary school change that allows an additional space to explain that change if you've changed high schools as well. So definitely use it judiciously.
Hey, podcast friends, if you've been enjoying the College Admissions Process podcast, I'm excited to share my new book, Straight from the Admissions Office, Insider Strategies for College Applications. It's packed with insights and tips from over 250 podcast episodes with admissions professionals designed to make the college process less overwhelming. Whether you're a student, parent, or college counselor, it's a valuable resource for navigating the admissions process. By grabbing a copy, you're also helping to support the podcast. The links are in the show notes. Thank you, and best wishes to all with the college admissions process. Well, we appreciate that. Students definitely don't use the additional space for an additional essay, but if there's something that you want to share to add a little more context, it certainly can help you, right? There's no guarantees that you're going to be admitted, but it could certainly help to make sure that whatever context you need to share is somewhere represented within the overall application. Now, students only get 150 characters, not words, but 150 characters per activity on the Common Application. So, Dr. Dunn, in such limited space, what makes an activity stand out? What is it that you're looking for in that very limited space?
Yes, I always encourage students to put the activities that are most important to them towards the top. That's the first thing my eyes and my team's eyes will see as we're reviewing the application, whether that is for a summer or for the entire year, because that is something that we want to see as the core, of who you are. I will also share that those activities for students who are thinking about, oh, is it just school or is it just volunteer work? It is everything in that space. We want to know how you are spending your time. And so definitely utilize those weeks per year or those hours per week as accurate as you can. Many students utilize the average feature. This is the average number of hours per week or per semester that I'm able to take advantage. If the student is pursuing a gap year, there's a PG or postgraduate opportunity for you to delineate that. But I would say that would be the biggest piece of advice. And then if you've exhausted all of those areas there, the additional information section can provide more context if there's an acronym, for example.
Well, that's tremendous advice and insight. We really appreciate it. And of course, letters of recommendation can play a big part in the overall application. So, Dr. Dunn, what do strong letters of recommendation consistently reveal about a student, particularly in a liberal arts college such as Skidmore, and what makes a letter less helpful even when written really positive about the student?
Yes, I love letters of recommendation, and I recognize as well that every school context pursues recommendation letters differently. And so I'll share that the role of the counselor recommendation letter is giving us a 30,000-foot view of the student within the context of their high school, but also within the context of their graduating class. Sometimes we're able to have hyper-specific information about the student, and other times it's more broad information about the student. And that is okay. That is one of the reasons why we do not compare school A to B. It is our responsibility as admissions counselors to understand that context in that regard. Teacher recommendation letters, this is where the students have more of that ownership, which I appreciate. And I would say that students who are choosing teachers, not only who like them, which is number one, but students are choosing teachers who know them well, but can speak beyond the grade that they received in a course. In some ways, if a student has had one of those bunny slopes or roller coaster grade trends in that regard, having a recommendation letter from the teacher, if a student has a good relationship with that teacher, can provide context to help us understand the intangible aspects of what that student may look like in terms of academic preparation for our coursework. And so those are pieces that I encourage. Again, I always encourage students to give teachers enough time. Think about your teachers early. In that regard, I have had a couple of moments in my career where a teacher, understandably so, wrote a letter recommendation, and the recommendation letter said the student submitted this request 2 days before the application was due. I am not writing a letter for this student, period. And they submitted it in that regard. And I couldn't blame them. It was December 29th of whatever year that was. And it was during school break. And that student, that student had ample time in that regard. And so all of that to say, give teachers enough time, and they're providing more information beyond your transcript.
Well, thank you so much for that example, which obviously resonated with you from however many years back. So, students, absolutely give your teachers time. You should probably ask them in the spring, the early spring, if you will, of junior year, so that they have plenty of time to think about it and get the essay done for you way in time before you're submitting in the fall of senior year. Now, another thing that came up in conversations about the letters of recommendations, and I'm curious what your take is on this. So, someone recommended perhaps it's best, assuming that the college wants two letters of recommendations, that one teacher be from the humanities and the other be from the STEM field, as opposed to asking two humanities or two STEMs, just so that you get a better overall picture of the student. What are your thoughts on that piece of advice?
That is an excellent question. And I will say, in general, having the balance of STEM and humanities, if these are two areas for which the student feels represented by those teachers in that regard, they could provide some balance as a part of the review process. And it is not a requirement. So within the context of Skidmore, because we have so many students who were wholly in the perspective of humanities or wholly in the perspective of visual arts or STEM or a combination of both, we see a little bit of everything in that regard. I will caution, if you are applying to a school that is not Skidmore in this regard, some schools may be hyper specific regarding having at least one STEM or at least one calculus or physics recommendation letter, or having the opportunity to be considered for a scholarship for those institutions, right? But at Skidmore, we consider the core level teachers that are most important to you, who can speak to your academic achievement in high school.
Well, I think it's also important what you said in terms of picking teachers that really understand you students and that could add to your overall application. If you ask a teacher to write about you and he or she is really talking about things that are already evident on your transcript or activity sheet, then it's not really adding to the overall application. So, to Dr. Dunn's point, absolutely, you know who the teachers are that can add to the overall application. Ask those teachers. And by the way, if there's a certain something that you want them to write about, maybe an initiative that you started, maybe something that happened in class, don't be shy to ask the teachers if they could write about that specific thing. Now, Dr. Dunn, families sometimes consult this thing we call the common data set. How would you advise families to use Skidmore's data responsibly? And what are common misinterpretations that you see? And by the way, for families out there, you could search common data set, insert the name of the school, and it's a PDF document usually that comes up about 60 pages with a lot of information, a lot of data specific to admissions and other things about the college. What would you have to say about it, Dr. Dunn?
That is such a great question as well. The common data set, which I believe has become much more popular in the college search for students and families over the last several years. And I would share, to your question, the responsible use is really thinking about the quantitative nature of that documentation. The common data set is a required reporting that every college and university in the U.S. In that regard reports to the Department of Education to ensure consistent and standardized data for educational statistics. I would also share that there are nuances behind the data as well. And so if you're thinking about an institution that may have, 5 or 6 colleges and schools to which a student is applying, and you're looking at the breakdown, the number of students who are admitted here and the breakdown of where they are there, there could be some nuances that are not described beyond those areas. Skidmore is a little bit different because we do not admit by major in that regard. And so our common data set is pretty consistent across the board, as many institutions as well. But I would take it as a starting point. I would not take it as a your full assessment of an institution. It is also one that I encourage students, and I am a higher education nerd. I like longitudinal data. I like to see trends. And if I'm looking at a common data set that was in 2018, 2019, it is likely going to look very different in 2025, 2026 when that is officially solidified because of the natural trends that happen in higher education across the board. So use it as a starting point, but not use it as the primary source of information. I encourage you to take a look and ask your admissions counselors for different institutions regarding statistics. At Skidmore, we send documentation to our high school counselors who have had students apply to our institutions, and we are pretty transparent about our admissions statistics in that way. Many institutions also have blogs where they're transparent about their processes that go beyond the common data set.
Well, we really appreciate that advice. And again, students and families, if you're interested, common data set, insert name of school. But I really appreciate what Dr. Dunn said, which is ask the admissions rep. They come to your high school, you see them at college fairs, you see them on campus. They are there to help you. Dr. Dunn, I was curious, for students who had an IEP or 504 plan while in high school, what academic and campus supports does Skidmore have in place to ensure continued success?
Great question. And I will share that that process actually begins during or even before a student chooses to apply to Skidmore. And so our process in our office at Skidmore is called Learning Commons. I have fantastic colleagues who are willing and able to speak individually with students and families regarding existing IEP or 504 plans that students may have documentation for, or even additional needs that students may have as well. And of course, we're able to share transparently what services we are able to provide, what we're able to support, and even some limitations if that is the case. Rare, but if that is the case. I would share in general, however, I believe it's very important for students to know that every institution in the United States is required to have an opportunity and information as it relates to documentation and services of students who are looking for that support during their post-secondary journey. In that regard, I would begin with the admissions office first, and then other ways. There are many different routes, if you will, for students, but begin with the admissions office. We tend to be the hub of information, and we can direct families and students directly to where they need to go and where they need to be.
Well, I appreciate that. Again, begin with the admissions office. Don't be shy to go and ask your questions, whatever they may be, students and families. Now, Dr. Dunn, after years leading admissions at Skidmore, what's one question you wish families would ask, but they often don't? What is that question?
Oh, that is a good question. All of these questions are great questions. I will share a question that families do not ask, but I wish that they did, is thinking about when you have that admission letter in hand and you are about to embark on this journey. Not only life after college, which at Skidmore we do very well, very high placement, graduate professional school, and directly into employment. But think about those 4 years and the reflective moments of what those 4 years, what you want to get out of it. What do you want to learn about yourself? Even if that's an I don't know. In that regard, those are the pieces that I encourage families to think about when they're going on a college tour, when they're talking with a current student, whether that's a student ambassador or a random student they may meet in the dining hall or on their walk, in between buildings in that regard of what do you hope to gain through these next 4 years. And those are the pieces. And I know that's pretty meta, pretty and reflective in that regard. But there's so much transformation that takes place during those 4 years. And I had the beautiful opportunity to see that trajectory over time. And I'm crying alongside parents and guardians during commencement because you're seeing such a huge truly transformation of students, but to be reflective in those moments, but also for those families to ask questions or what are a question to ask is what have you most learned from your students during this time in that regard? And that's something that requires us to think more deeply about beyond the quantitative outcomes of our experience.
Well, I love that. I love the reflective nature of the college admissions process. And you said it, be more reflective. And by doing so, students and families, it will help you find the right fit when you do, as Dr. Dunn said, like really consider what are you trying to get out of these 4 years of college. So that was great advice. And we really appreciate this conversation, which was totally awesome. And before I get to the last question, Dr. Dunn, I always like to ask, is there a question that I didn't ask or a topic that simply didn't come up that we haven't talked about and you'd like to share with us now?
I actually don't know. That's a great question. We talked quite a bit about well, we did delve into AI a little bit as well, and the role of demographics. But I think the biggest piece is I think it will come in my last three pieces.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And so it does lead us then to that last question. What are your top three pieces of advice? And you've given so many, but what are your top three pieces of advice for families navigating today's highly selective, especially liberal arts admissions landscape?
Yes, yes, and yes. My top three pieces of advice, especially if you're thinking about the liberal arts experience, is the liberal arts is more than what you think. I'm a person who has had the privilege and the ability to work and to be a product of really amazing institutions, large public, medium-sized research, medium-sized liberal arts university. But the value of a small liberal arts college like Skidmore is one that has taken my heart like a storm in many different ways. So do not underestimate the value of a liberal arts education. The other piece that I encourage is to give yourself some grace throughout this process. And this goes for both our students as well as our parents and guardians who are supporting our students. There's a lot of information out there. Again, there are around 4,000 colleges and universities here in the United States. There are several colleges and universities outside of the United States. All of them have many different types of ways that they're approaching this process. And it is very easy to feel like you're going through, drinking out of a fire hose in that regard. Give yourself the grace to take a beat when you need to. Even we on the admission side have to take a beat. And it's like, oh, we're going to phone a friend and say, hey, this is new. Can you share more about this program or this process? It's okay to ask questions. So give yourself some grace. And then the last piece of advice is to ask questions. We are human beings on this side. I have a wonderful team who has the ability to read. We have 2 readers per application for our students. And we understand that this is a 17, 18-year process for our students, whether we are reviewing on a yearly basis. And we want to take it with the integrity and the intent that you all have prepared and brought to this process as well. And with that, we want to ensure that as the information hub, we want to ensure that we're giving accurate and supportive information to you. So please know that we want to hear from you. We like connecting with you. Yes, we would love to, if you're interested in Skidmore, we would love to have you. We also recognize that you're looking at a multitude of different schools, and we want to be as supportive to you as possible in your journey.
Well, you've definitely been supportive. It shows, it resonates in the way you speak. And Skidmore is obviously so fortunate to have you, as were we during this conversation, because you gave so much advice, so many insights. And again, Dr. Dunn, I cannot thank you enough for being here. You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Dr. Durante, as well. I appreciate you.
Well, we appreciate you. And to everyone out there, good luck with the college search. Take care, all, and best wishes. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The CAP, the College Admissions Process Podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please don't forget to tell a friend and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am your host, John Durante, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode of The CAP. Thank you for listening to the College Admissions Process podcast presented by Prep Expert. Prep Expert offers live online SAT and ACT courses with the best score guarantees, instructors, and curriculum. Go to prepexpert.com to guarantee your child's success.